Everyone, Chris here. I wanted to be able to tell you my story today, and I did this last week at a Toastmasters group where I talk about my inspirational story. I talk about the first year of my development journey, some of the challenges I encountered, and the highs and the lows, and the people I met along the way, and the struggles. But I want you to see this and best take away any tips. I hope you find it useful. So enjoy.
I want to share with you my story today on how the importance of breaking out of your comfort zone, facing your fears, can really inspire growth in yourself. So I'm going to take you back 5 years. 5 years ago, I was happy in my current way of doing things. I had a good group of friends, I was happy in my job, but I really struggled adjusting to London. I don't know if anyone else has found that, adjusting to a new city. It can be difficult, a new environment. And the reason I found this difficult was because I wasn't very confident, and I found myself bullied in a house share, I found myself bullied in my job, but throughout my whole life this had always happened to me, and I felt in a way it was kind of normal. But happy in my current way of doing things, I had my friends and they started to get into relationships. And I'm sure we probably can relate to this, where one of your good friends goes off in a relationship, you don't see them again. And in a way, I start to feel left behind with my friends, because I think we want to be equal, if not better than our friends, in some kind of way, if I'm right thinking that. My mum would be on the phone, have you got a girlfriend yet? And I put the phone down and I'd feel quite disappointed, because I felt like at this point I was going in this downward spiral, that I was kind of being left behind, and that I couldn't really, in my way of doing things, it wasn't really like something I could make a change straight away. But I thought, all right, if I get a girlfriend, my life will be a lot better. I feel like I would fit in more. And for a matter of months, there was a girl that I really liked in my job. And in a way, I was always thinking something will happen here. And then we went out a couple of times. So I was like, something's going to happen. The writing's on the wall. I was telling my friends. And then all of a sudden, wham, I got this text. And she said, getting back with my ex-boyfriend. Let's just be friends. And although I'd been here before and I had that similar sick feeling in my stomach, it felt different this time. I really did feel lost. I felt, where am I going from here? I feel like, quite distant from everyone. And I felt like, being taken advantage of in a way. My self-confidence, this is down to me. I need to fix this problem. But I approached my friends and they would say, you'll meet someone else. I phoned my mum up and she would say, perhaps you could try online dating. No one wants dating advice from their own mum, right? And as the phone call went on, I really started to open up and I started to get really upset. I started to cry and I said, I feel really alone. I feel very unhappy. I'm just not very confident. And then my mum would say to me, like, well, you're not very confident, are you? Why is that? And I said, I don't know. So I put the phone down. And I realized at this point I felt all alone, and it wasn't like I was being understood by anyone. But then I realized that no one was coming to the rescue. And one of my main points, first sort of takeaway is that you want to take responsibility. If you find yourself in a trap, it's up to you to get yourself out of it. And at this point, no one was coming to the rescue. So I thought I would set up on this conquest of becoming more confident rather than finding a girlfriend this time. And I thought, what could I do to really, because I didn't want to feel this way again and I didn't want to fall back into that place. So I thought, what would really allow me to become a lot more confident? I thought, let's face something that I really fear doing. And I always watched this video on YouTube of this guy just going up to people on the tube, speaking to them. And also he'd sort of go up to women in the street and in a day, and I thought, sort of asked them out on a date. And I found this interesting and I thought, this would improve my confidence, my growth, and allow me to develop as well. So I just enrolled in this course, and although I was terrified, the idea of going up and speaking to people in the street and in the day was very terrifying. But I realized that throughout my life I'd always grown from facing something I feared. And I'm sure we feel that fear, and when you approach something that you're really scared of doing, it's terrifying, but afterwards you feel great. And at the end of the weekend, I felt on this massive high that I was just, compared to my previous weekends, it was more that I felt that a lot happier, that I could just go out there and just meet people. I felt free in a way. And from that point, I started to go away and then just keep pushing myself out of my comfort zone in different areas, facing my fear. It was as if I was becoming stronger, I was becoming happier. And for a month, it was going really great. And then again, struggle. The feeling of aloneness again, because perhaps it was a rejection from someone or not really being able to have a conversation with someone. But that really held me back again. And I'd speak to my friends and they didn't really understand why I wanted to improve my confidence or my growth. I couldn't tell my parents, so I was quite embarrassed, to be honest. And I realized at this point, again, I'm all alone. And then I realized nobody makes it on their own. And I decided to ask for help. And at this point, the guy who ran the course was the only person who really understood me. He understood, he'd been in my situation before. So I made friends with him, and I was very anxious at the time, very nervous, worried too much about what people thought of me. He was quite the opposite. He was very calm, courageous, relaxed. He would always see the positive in everything. He would just walk into any room and would always naturally lead any conversation, like nothing I'd seen before. Of course, he was good with women, which was good to see. And I thought if anyone could, he was the alpha male, you would say, but if anyone could help me make this transition of becoming more confident, it would have to be him. And what happened initially was quite tough, because he would say to me, the difficulty I'm finding myself in at the moment is down to you, and you've got to be able to pick yourself back up. If I said I cared about what someone thought of me, he would say, who gives a shit? If I worried about something, he said, no big deal. And with all of these responses, I kind of felt like I was adopting his mindset, his behaviors, the way I'd walk and talk and start acting. And he'd also remind me that despite me being in this personal development industry, there is no quick fix. There is no 6-week confidence. This is a very long-term thing. And I felt like I always had him in my corner, even though I was out there on my own. And from this point, I really started to pick things up. And I realized that if it was something as simple as a fear of rejection, why should this really bother me? Because I was growing. I was progressing to this confident person I want to be. And it felt better than the life I was living before, where perhaps I'd be watching television and thinking, well, what if I did this? And if I cared about what people thought, it was very difficult, because I did notice it was like the Red Sea parting of friends who didn't stick by me. But I realized who my true friends were, because your true friends will stick by you no matter what. And soon after, I realized that I pretty much started to have no one in my life who was holding me back, who was saying, don't do this, don't do that. And I attract other like-minded people. But at the end of the day, you're just being yourself. If subconsciously you want to do something and someone says not to do it, they're not really your friends, I found. And then the other like-minded people, I realized that it was just this positivity in my life, that it was like I had a wind behind me. And every single day, I just would keep picking myself back up. And I thrived on this getting out of your comfort zone, this heartbeat I would feel. It was like an adrenaline rush, like a drug that I had to have. So whether it was a public speaking course, a stand-up comedy course, I would just sign up to it, because it was the long-term investment. It was like I was living in the future. A Toastmasters course. Anything which really allowed me to grow, where I would be in the spotlight. Every time I would go out and I would see a beautiful woman, I'd go over and say hello. Every time I would see a cashier, I would just make conversation. It was just every time I met someone, I wanted to make connection. I wanted to understand something about them. And my social circles improved, my dating life improved. I just, at this point, started to feel I was unstoppable. And it got to the point where I kept climbing and climbing a mountain, and I just looked behind and I couldn't believe how much I'd grown on this journey. And to the point where I was with Ed, and he took a picture and he said, you've completely changed, the guy who took me on this journey, you've completely changed as a person. And I realized at this point, what was this all for? Of course, I would go and set up my business and I want to help other people. But I realized when I went out with my mum not too long ago, and she just said, you've completely changed as a person. It's just don't even recognize you anymore. But the way you are, we don't argue. And you've influenced not just me, but the whole family and everyone around us. And I'm so proud of you. And that just meant everything to me. And not just that, but that I felt like I'm content in who I am. But as my mum said, it's the person you become. And this is what I believe it was all about on this journey. And when faced with a decision, it was like I was coming to the end of a narrow hallway and I had to take one of two doors. I could have took this door on the left and kept doing what I was doing, perhaps with this rejection from the girl. I could have just said, well, maybe I won't fall for a girl so easy, I could try internet dating. Or I could take the door on the right, where I would really look to confront all of my fears. And once I took that door, I just couldn't stop. It was inspiring growth. And I now feel like I live in this reality of always being able to face your fear and how that can really allow you to grow. And I realized that it's about connecting with the world and other people, ultimately yourself. It can take one decision to change your life, and it's funny how the worst decision, the worst moment of my life turned out to be the best moment of my life because I took the door on the right. And I highly encourage anyone, if you do have a fear or something's holding you back and you want to address it, or you have a dream, to always look to face your fears, because it will allow you to grow. And as I mentioned in my story, it is about the person you become, and it's the people around you who matter the most. And that is what it's all about. So I highly encourage everyone to face the fears and take the door on the right. Thank you.